Introduction to Graphic Design. Being a young learner who is well versed with technology and computers, you have been bombarded with different kinds of information in your devices. In your devices, you have stored many kinds of information, namely text, audio, video and images. In this particular presentation we will be discussing on one kind of information, and that is images. And this is the keyword for which we will move on to our discussion on graphic design.
So, in the preview video that was shown a while back, we had spoken about the different kinds of data that are being maintained in a computer and other devices that you have had experience of using. And I'll be talking about one type of data which is very, very important in this particular paper that I'm going to take, and that is images. Now, in any computers that you have come across, you've been working with images which are a photo of yourself, it could be of a cloth, it could be of a scenery and all those things, right? And if you do see, it belongs to a particular type of image. Now there are two types of images, okay? And these images, which are digital in nature, these are referred as bitmap images or raster image, which you have been using all this while. And you have the vector images. Okay. So what is a raster image? A raster image is nothing but an image which is made up of pixels or dots. Okay. Wherein each of these pixels are given a different color or grade. And you can assume a raster image is nothing but an image which has been plotted in a graph paper. Now, if you look at the raster image, when the image is enlarged, you'll see that the pixels tend to grow, and if you enlarge such an image, all the details are lost, and in the end it becomes pixelated. You will also see a lot of these jagged edges, okay, that are appearing across the periphery of these square dots as you zoom in into the image. Now, the software that is often used to manage raster image or bitmap image are Photoshop, then your very own MS Paint, then you have GIMP, okay, and the file types that are related with raster image are GIF file, BMP file, JPG or JPEG, then PNG files. If you want to visualize how a raster image looks like when it's being interpreted or stored in a computer, it's something like this. So let us say, if you look at a graph, a raster image, it is as if it's being plotted in a graph paper. So graph paper is made of horizontal lines and vertical lines. Please bear with crookedness of the line. Okay, this is just to demonstrate. So graph paper looks something like this, where you have a series of straight lines, in my case crooked lines, okay, which are intersecting each other. Now, for a particular image to be represented, okay, you see that each of these intersection of rows and column lines that are being drawn in a graph paper, these are nothing but a region which represent 1 pixel. And if you go into see in this, there are many pixels. Now, for a particular image that I want to look at, I have to know which are the pixels that are being filled up with colors or shade of colors we will produce as that image. So let's take the case of image of an alphabet A, capital A. Now for that, you have to know in this graph area which are the regions where we have to fill up each of these pixel, okay, these intersection of rows and columns, we call them as pixel or picture element or square dots, okay. We need to fill them up with color that will help us to produce that image. So in this case, we want to visualize how does a raster image of an alphabet A looks like. It is as if it's being plotted in a graph paper, okay, and all we have to do is that in each of those square dots which are needed to produce the alphabet A, we have to fill it up. So let us say this one. So this is another. Let me just roughly fill it up. That will help us to produce that alphabet A that we are visualizing. if you look at these regions, which is for which I'm making a mark, this will help us produce that alphabet A. Though it does not look like a clean result, but this is how you imagine any images that are being created as a raster image or as a bitmap image. It is as if it's being plotted in a graph paper, where you have a collection of these square dots, or we call them as pixels or picture elements, which you're going to fill them up with colors that will help us produce that particular image. And when you look at any raster image, it's made of so many colors. Okay, so it does not mean that only one color is going to be filled up in one particular pixel. You could have pixels where the colors will be different. So this is how a raster image is being represented. Another type of image is the vector image. Okay, now in a vector image, the major building blocks that will help us to construct a vector image is those geometric shapes. In raster image, it is those small square blocks, square dots, okay, that are being filled up with colors that will help us produce the content of the image of a raster image. But in vector image, the major building blocks are these geometric shapes, which are in the form of straight lines, polygons, circles, ellipses, squares, and rectangles. And each of these shapes have a definite part. Like for example, for a straight line, it is having a line that is being drawn by connecting two dots. For a circle, it will be circular in nature. For a square, it will be a collection of straight lines that are going to be joined together to produce a square and then the rectangle. Now in a vector image, whether you are going to enlarge or reduce the image, the loss of detail is never going to occur. And it takes less space in storing than raster images. Now the softwares that are used to create vector images are Adobe Illustrator, then CorelDRAW, which we will be focusing on, Inkscape, and then the different file types which represent vector image are SVG, CDR, which is the format, the native format for CorelDRAW. AI is for Adobe Illustrator. Okay. Now, in order for us to work with these two types of images, you'll see that we always have two categories of software packages. One of them is called image editor, which fall into the large category of painting programs, where here the painting program allows you to draw an object, and then this application will then convert it into tiny square of dots called pixels. And the painting being produced through an image editor or a painting program is then referred as a bitmap image, or just bitmap or image. Okay, so the first kind of image editor that you have had experience of working with, especially when you have learned computer for the first time, is MS Paint. So that is a good example of a painting program which allows you to draw an object, and when you save that drawing that is being made by you, or the painting that is made by you through MS Paint, the application itself will convert it into a collection of tiny square dots called pixels that will produce us the output of that painting that is being painted by you in MS Paint, and in the end it's called bitmap image, or just bitmap or image. Now the other category of software which very few people are using, except for those who are working in the field of graphic design, is the drawing program or illustration programs. And in such softwares, you produce drawings which comprise of objects which are independent, mathematically defined lines and shapes, which you have to bring them together to produce the vector image, or we call it as a drawing or illustration. Okay. Now what are the disadvantages and advantages of a painting program and the drawing program? As far as painting program is concerned, it provides you with an extremely straightforward approach to creating images, where you have a lot of tools that you have to use to draw or paint the drawing or the painting of yours. Okay, so you could have a brush, you could have a pen tool, and all those things. Okay. Now the disadvantage of a painting program is that because bitmaps contain a fixed number of pixels, the resolution of an image, which is one of the key unit which is often used in a painting program, is going to measure the quality of the image. And this is nothing but, the resolution is the number of pixels per inch, which is dependent on the size at which the image is printed. Now when you print the image very small, the pixels become tiny, thereby it increases the resolution. Now if you print the image large and the pixels grows, thereby decreasing the resolution. In this case, you'll see that when you print the image large, you'll be able to distinguish between different individual pixels, which in the end you can see a lot of jagged edges and blocky transition. Now to remedy this is to increase the number of pixels, but in the end it dramatically increases the size of the image file in the hard disk. The pros and cons of a drawing program. The process of drawing in a drawing program is more about construction, because you are actually building lines and shape point by point and then stack them on top of each other to create a finished image. Okay, and each of these objects are independently editable. Now as a drawing program, it often defines shape, lines, text as mathematical equation. They do not look at shapes, lines and text as if they are made up of these collection of pixels, but they are being considered as some mathematical equation. So in the end, you'll see that these objects, when they are being drawn in a drawing program, they appear very smooth and sharply focused regardless of the size that you're going to print or view it. Now as far as drawings are concerned, which are being created and saved by a drawing program, they take up less space on disk. Now the file size of a drawing depends on the quantity and complexity of the objects that the drawing contains. Now when you want to work with a painting program or an image editor, it takes a lot of memory. That means that it is memory intensive. It consumes a lot of the RAM. Okay, and as far as working with a drawing, it is more CPU intensive. That means that it's more requiring the service of the processor. Okay, and these are some examples of a bitmap. So this is a bitmap. If you're going to see, this is nothing but a painting of the wing, part of the wing of a butterfly, and you can see that there are many pixels, and each pixels have different colors. And when you look at this image, it is in the zoom out mode, and you can see that there are these jagged edges. Okay, where you could see that there are many square dots here that make up this painting of a part of the wing of the butterfly. And on the right hand side is the vector shapes. Okay, a vector drawing, and you can see they are made of circular. You can see, compare this and this is more lifelike in nature, this is more illustration or drawing in nature. This is another example of a bitmap image. If you zoom out, you'll not be able to see much of the pixels, but when you zoom in, you can see. Okay, so this is the differences between the two types of digital images that you will be coming across when you're going to learn in this particular paper, DTP 201, for which the image editing part, for which you'll be handling with raster images, this will be taken up by Sanat. And as far as this drawing part, okay, I'll be handling it. And from this point onwards, whenever you're going to create any drawings in a drawing program like CorelDRAW, which I'll be focusing on more, we will not refer to such drawings as images. We'll refer to them purely as drawings or illustration. Thank you.